What's going on? Another Snapkeep MTG video after a whole 2 years of being inactive? Yeah, it is. Hey guys, what's up? It's Jake, and I am so excited to be back here making content for you guys. Not going to go off the bat and promise you when regular content is going to be or any of that jazz because we all know I'm not going to keep to that schedule. However, that being said, I'm on a content creation kick. Me and some of my friends are starting a podcast about EDH that I am super stoked for and you all need to listen to. I will post details about it in the comments section below whenever that is coming out. We're still in the works on it. Of course, I'll post an update video when it does happen. Introduce my friends to you who are going to be a part of that podcast with me, Matt and Zach, and we'll get going and it's going to be awesome. In the meantime, I'm going to keep on with some EDH content. Also, probably going to do some popper content. I got a sweet brew I'd like to show everyone, and then I can text some of more tier 1, tier 2 decks that you probably already know, but I can give a talk about it since I've got some experience with them. Anyways, that being said, we're jumping right head in first with Azami, Lady of Scrolls. This is my most competitive EDH deck and a deck I've spent the most time and money on. So Azami says, tap an untapped wizard, draw a card. It is a crazy good commander. You're going to get so much card draw, so much card advantage, and essentially this is a combo control deck. So we're trying to control the game and keep our opponents at bay from whatever they're trying to do. In the meantime, we are trying to get pieces for our combo to go off, draw our entire deck, and then win the game with the Boratory Maniac. Alright, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this deck tech. First up, we've got the mana base. The mana base is a simple 34 lands, a few non-basics, but mostly islands. We've got Ancient Tomb, crazy ramp at the land slot. The damage doesn't even matter. It's incredible. Myriad Landscape. Some people question this pick, but I think the early turns, depending on the draw, can be very different, and sometimes that ramp is what you need to get going. Then we have Seat of the Synod. Definitely not necessary. It's a tutor target for Trinket Mage if it needs be, but this could easily be a cut. Then we have Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. With so many creatures in our deck and enchantments, including and our commander with so much devotion in their mana cost, this card can generate some real mana for us, which can be helpful early in the game. Then last up we got Reliquary Tower. Let's admire the promo. This gives us no max hand size, and in a deck where we're drawing so many cards, this is super relevant. And then, of course, we got the islands. Here they are. Woohoo! Alright, moving on. Moving on from the lands, we got our ramp package here. The fast mana in this deck is really important. We are a Paradox Engine deck, so one way that we can win the game is by going off the Paradox Engine with our mana rocks and creatures, drawing us cards. So these cheap mana rocks are really good, such as Chrome Mox. It produces a colored mana, can come out on turn 1, super good. Lotus Petal. This is a one-time effect, but just a one-time effect can sometimes be enough to get you the game. Soul Ring, we know it, we love it, it exists, no need to talk about it. Next up we got Mana Vault. One of the fast mana sources, incredible card, ramps us real quick, can help us get our commander out early, which is what is important. Next up, we have Copy Artifact. This is an enchantment that copies any artifact on the battlefield, so essentially it will be whatever the best mana rock on the battlefield is. Very flexible and great card. Next up, Grim Monolith. Another Mana Vault type effect. It's going to be real good. Ramps us, same thing as Mana Vault. Moving on. Felwar Stone. So this taps for any color that a land our opponent's control could produce. And that being said, most times at these higher level tables there will be another blue deck, so this will tap for a blue, and these color mana sources are really important. Then we have Sapphire Medallion, which isn't a rock, but it reduces all of our blue spells by 1, which can be very relevant and help us chain off and really hold more counter spells, essentially. Then we got Mind Stone, simply taps for a colorless. We just want a high density of these mana rocks, and this is another slot to fill that. Also, we can cycle it if need be. Then we have Thought Vessel. taps for colorless, and gives us no max hand size, and I've already talked about how that is important. Next up, we got Sky Diamond. Enters the battlefield tapped, and it taps to produce a blue mana. Like I said, color mana is super important, and in that same vein, Cold Steel Heart essentially does the same thing. Then we have, finally, Extra Planar Lens. When it enters, you imprint a land, then all lands with that name, including your opponent's, tap for double, essentially. Ideally, I would have Snow-Covered Islands in this deck, but Snow-Covered Islands are really expensive. It's one of the last upgrades I need to make to the deck, but in the meantime, we'll play this at the ideal time, and hopefully we can abuse it more than our opponents. Alright, moving on. We got card draw. Though our deck draws so many cards, a small card draw package is still important because we can't always rely on our commander. We've got the cantrips Preordain, Ponder, and Brainstorm. We know them, we love them. Good early game, good late game, just good cards. Then we have Mystic Remora. This is one of the most underrated cards in EDH. If you take one thing away from this video, it should be to play Mystic Remora. It is your second copy of Rhystic Study. A lot of times it's better than Rhystic Study. It'll draw you tons of cards. Read it, it's absurd, then play it. Next up, Impulse. Oftentimes we are going to be passing turns and leaving up our mana to try to counter our opponent's spells, and leave up mana just to deal with threats. And a lot of times there's not a threat to deal with, and if that's the case, Impulse is a great card to put on the end of an opponent's turns and dig for more answers or combo pieces. Then we have Windfall. This is a huge card draw effect, and it will draw lots of cards for us and our opponents though, so we need to be careful when we play it and make sure we're using it to dig for more combo pieces and hopefully go off the turn that we play it. Next up, we have Rhystic Study. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, unless they pay 1, you draw a card. We know it, you love it, or you hate it. Either way, it's there. It's a staple. It's great. Then finally, we got Dig Through Time. The selection that this card gives is incredible. It helps you dig for more combo pieces, and it'll be really solid in this deck. Next up, we have the counter spells. Counter spells are really important in this deck. They are how we protect ourselves in mono blue. And so with that being said, we play a high density of them. First being Pact of Negation. It costs 0, which is incredible because we can use it in a counter war when we're trying to protect our combo, and even if we run out of mana, this will still be there. The second clause isn't too relevant because when you're playing Pact of Negation, you're either preventing someone from winning the game or you're winning the game yourself. So that second clause, you don't mind at all. Next is Swan Song, one of the best counter spells in EDH. Basically, you counter a non-creature spell, not including a planeswalker, and they get a 2/2 bird, which you don't care about at all. For 1 mana, this is great value and an awesome card. Next up is the spell. So a counter-target instant, which may seem too inflexible, too specific to some people, but in this deck, a lot of what we're trying to do is protect our combo when we are trying to go off and win the game. And in those instances, the spell's awesome. It only costs 1. When people try to interact with us, it'll most of the time be with instants, and this will protect us. Next up is Negate. Just counter-target non-creature spell. Clean, simple. It's a great card. Then we have Delay. So Delay counter-target spell, and you put 3 time counters on it. So this basically puts a spell off for 3 turns, which oftentimes is enough, and this is just a better just counter spell in most instances. Next we have counter spell itself, simply counter target spell. Then we have Arcane Denial. The draw clause on this, I don't really mind at all. I get a card as well as my opponent. So it essentially cycles itself, and our opponent really only draws 1 card because they're getting their card countered, so that negates one of them in a way. So this card does work in this deck. Next up is Disallow. It's a 3-mana counter spell, and for that there needs to be good reason to play it, and that for me is the flexibility on this card. It can simply counter a spell, but also being able to counter an activated or triggered ability can be really relevant in some cases where otherwise we would not really have an answer for some cards. Next up, we have Cryptic Commands. One of the most iconic counterspells in Magic. It's super flexible, can deal with lots of things. There's one way we can deal with the actual permanent once that's resolved and hit the board. Great card. Next up, Force of Will, number 2, Foil. You may discard an island and another card from your hand instead of paying this mana cost and counter target spell. I'd say any control deck in 2 colors or less in blue needs to be playing Foil. It is your second copy of Force of Will, or third after Pact of Negation, and it's incredible. It's super underrated, people are finally getting behind it, and they need 2 more. Then we have Misdirection. So Misdirection is, if Foil is copy number 2 or 3, Misdirection is copy number 4 of Force of Will, specifically in a counter war. Because Misdirection, there's an interaction with it where you can target a counter spell with Misdirection and make the target of that counter spell Misdirection itself. And then Misdirection will resolve and it'll go to your graveyard. That counter spell still sees Misdirection as its target and it will fizzle. So you basically get to counter your counter spell with this card, which is what makes it so good. And finally, the card I've been referring to, Force of Will, free counter spell. It's incredible, you know it, you probably hate it, or you play it and you love it. Moving on from the counterspell package, we have just a small, removal and utility suite. First up is Rapid Hybridization. Destroy target creature. Being able to kill stuff on the board is really important. They get 3/3, but what does that matter? Next up is Pithing Needle. This may seem like an interesting choice, but I do run Trinket Mage, so I run a small package that I can grab a Trinket Mage in this deck. And Pithing Needle can really shut down some decks. You can name certain combo pieces to turn them off. You can name people's commanders, and sometimes that just completely ruins them. This is a recent addition, so I haven't had much time to test it, but I think I like it. I think it's going to be good. Next up, in the same vein, is Grafdigger's Cage. This hoses graveyard decks is another target of Trinket Mage. It's one of my one-off spots that I found that I can include to deal with random threats. Next up is Sensei's Top. This doesn't necessarily belong in this category, but I didn't know where else to put it. Its utility is a great card, can be tutored with Trinket Mage, helps us set up the top of our deck. We can draw a top card of our deck if we need to. It's great. Next up, Reality Shift. In my opinion, better Rapid Hybridization. You destroy a creature and they manifest top card of their library. Most of the time I found whatever they manifest is often just a land. I mean, statistically that would be the case 30% of the time. So this card is incredible in my opinion. Best removal spell in blue probably. Or that would be Cyclonic Rift. What do I need to say about this? It bounces everyone else's boards, oftentimes is almost considered a win condition in the time that you play it. Every blue deck plays it, you're sick of it, I'm sick of it, but we gotta play it. And then lastly, we have Back to Basics. At high level tables where there are 4 color partner commanders being played and 3 color decks and these greedy mana bases, this can really punish them. And in a deck where we're running, I think it was 29 islands, doesn't bother us at all. Alright, moving on to our Tutor package. Starting off, we have Mystical Tutor. Gets an instant or sorcery from our deck. Can get lots of things. It can get another Tutor spell, or it can even get one of our win conditions. Merchant Scroll gets a blue instance. Oftentimes, this is get a Cyclonic Rift, but also it can get a Dramatic Reversal, and it just has lots of flexibility. Next up, Muddle the Mixture. So this is a counter spell, but oftentimes, almost every time, we're going to use it for its Transmute ability to get a spell that costs 2 into our hands. Oftentimes, that's going to be us tuning for an Ice-Crown Scepter or Dramatic Reversal, whatever piece we're missing to help us combo off. Next up, we have Fabricate. Fabricate, again, can tutor for Ice-Crown Scepter, it can tutor for a ramp spell, it can tutor for Paradox Engine. Just very important card for our deck. And then we have Trinket Mage. I've already talked about it, run the Trinket Mage package. It can grab ramp, it can grab just specific answers, can grab Sensei's Divine Top. Great card, and it also has attached, if you read, like right in between this line here, tap to draw a card, which makes it better. Then we have Spellseeker. This essentially says, go get Cyclonic Rift. Almost every time, unless you're going to get Dramatic Reversal to pair with Ice-Crown Scepter and win the game. Next we have Long-Term Plans. So this is as close as blue is going to get to a Demonic Tutor effect. Well, more closely Vampiric Tutor. So you tutor for any card, but then you put third from the top of your library. Now this sounds like okay, but with our commander and with Azami, often we'll cast this card at the end of someone's turn, tap Azami to draw a card, untap, draw for turn, tap Azami, and then you draw the card that you tutored for. So though it seems like that's kind of a far ways away in our deck, it's really not. Then we have Warrior of Invention. Lots of artifacts in this deck are super important. This gets Paradox Engine, gets Ice-Crown Scepter. This card has overperformed for me. Is great, highly recommend it. And lastly, we have Tezzeret. I was just saying artifacts are important. When this first comes out, it can go ahead and grab Ice-Crown Scepter, it can grab a ramp spell, it can ramp us with its +1, and after you just +1 one turn, if it sticks around, you can get Paradox Engine. Alright, moving on. Next to last category of the deck, just got the rest of our creatures. I run a small wizard package. Most of these do something in addition to just being themselves that make them good. But when evaluating these cards, also think they all have the tactile ability, tap to draw a card. Siren Stormtamer says tap to draw a card, and it has the ability to pay a blue and sacrifice Siren Stormtamer to counter a spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. That can be very relevant and help in tight spots. Curse Catcher, similar vein. Sacrifice it to counter an instant or sorcery unless its controller pays 1. This is great in Counter Wars. Then we have Martyr of Frost. Also sacrifices itself to counter a spell, depending on the number of blue spells in your hand and how much your opponent can pay for it. Then we have Baral, Chief of Compliance. Makes all of our instant and sorceries cost 1 less, and we loot whenever we counter a spell. Stony Brook Bannerets has Island Walk, which isn't relevant, and then Merfolk spells and wizards you play cost 1 less to cast. Oftentimes, this lets us cast our commander on turn 3 if we lead with a mana rock. Cast this on turn 2, then we can cast our commander on turn 3, draw 2 cards. Super good. Then we have Snapcaster Mage. We all know it, we all love it or hate it. Flashback a spell, often gets a counter spell or a tutor. Incredible card. Then we have Void Mage Prodigy. So this is an interesting one. You pay blue and sacrifice a wizard to counter a spell. This you often don't want to do because keeping your wizards to be able to tap them draw cards is often very important. However, in a pinch, this will do as a counter spell in tight spots. Then we have Prodigal Mage. I think so. Anyways, sorry, I was forgetting with the foreign language what this card was, but this says tap and untap wizard to counter a spell unless that player pays 1. This really makes our opponents think about when they want to cast their spells because we can either just tax them with it and make them pay that mana, then they don't have mana to hold up, or it just counters their spells outright. It really puts a hold on our opponent's game plan. Then we have Glenalendra. It has pay a blue, sacrifice it, counter target non-creature spell. It also has persist, and it's a wizard. So this is really relevant, really important in this deck. Another way to just win out in the counter wars by having more resources. And finally, there's Teferi. Teferi is essentially a way, if we can sneak it in, to keep our opponents from being able to interact with us at all. It is our I win button because if you get it and resolve it at the end of someone's turn, go to your turn, no one can interact with you, no fear of interaction, and it will get you there. Finally, we have our win conditions for the deck. All roads end in Laboratory Maniac. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. This is a combo piece in the win condition in lots of decks, and it's the same in this deck. Our goal is we are trying to get infinite mana and draw our deck, or just draw our deck naturally, and then play this card and win the game. How we do that is with Ice-Crown Scepter Dramatic Reversal. Ice-Crown Scepter, you imprint an instant that costs 2 or less onto it, and you can pay 2 to tap it and untap all permanents you control. or all non-land permanents. Or, sorry, excuse me, fumbling over my words. That's how it combos with Dramatic Reversal. But Ice Crown Scepter, you imprint instant sorcery, tap it for 2, and you cast that spell. You imprint Dramatic Reversal, and this says untap all non-land permanents you control. So you tap it to cast the spell. Dramatic Reversal will untap all of your mana rocks, and Dramatic Reversal, and Azami. So essentially, if you have 3 mana worth in your mana rocks, hopefully one of them is a colored source, you get infinite mana and you can draw your whole deck with Azami because this will untap. You'll have 1 mana floating, then you'll be able to activate his ability again, rinse and repeat, draw your deck. That is probably our main win condition. Following that, we have Intruder Alarm. Think of this as a Paradox Engine effect in this deck. It's a way to help us go off and get more card draw when we need it, and also it can hurt our opponents sometimes too, which is nice. And it makes people think about playing creatures because it gives extra card draw. Then we have Paradox Engine. This is crazy in this deck. If you resolve it, you'll probably win that turn or the following turn. You're just able to loot through your deck so fast, draw so many cards, get so much mana. It's crazy. And last but not least is the 1-card combo with Azami, Mind Over Matter. It's a 6-mana enchantment. Choose and discard a card to tap or untap target artifact, creature, or lands. So with enough cards in your hand, you play this, you tap Azami and draw a card, discard it, untap it, rinse and repeat, draw your entire deck, then hopefully have enough mana or enough cards to discard to be able to play Laboratory Maniac, win the game. Alright, y'all. That has been my Azami Lady of Scrolls EDH deck tech. I hope you enjoyed it. I've put a lot of work into this deck. I would only recommend this deck at a higher power level table. Not necessarily CEDH, though it can definitely exist in those environments and hold its own. If you like this deck and this video, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and keep on the lookout for the upcoming podcast and more videos coming out soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Snapkeep MTG, and I will see you guys next time.